Hello friends, good morning. I am Sunil Desai and welcome to Galaxy Online Learning, a division of Galaxy Tutorials. So before starting, I'd like to once again remind you to subscribe to our channel, Galaxy Online Learning. Press the bell icon so that you get the notifications. Okay, so all those who haven't subscribed, do subscribe as early as possible. Go through the lectures, see the videos, okay, and the question and answers are all been discussed in our study packs. So register yourself with Galaxy Tutorials and get your study pack. Okay. So let us start with today English of Standard 10th State Board. And today we are going to study chapter number 2.2. Okay, lessons 2.2. The three questions. Now this lesson is written by Leo Tolstoy, who was born in 1828 and who died in 1910. He was a Russian writer who is regarded as one of the greatest authors of his time, of all time. He first achieved literary acclaim in his 20s with his semi-autobiographical trilogy, Childhood, Boyhood and Youth. A parable is a short story with a moral lesson. So this is a parable. Okay. A parable usually has human characters. This parable concerns a king who wants to find the answers to what he considers to be the three most important questions in life. Okay, so this is a particular parable. A parable, it's a short story which gives you a moral lesson. Okay, so let us see now in this parable what the writer Leo Tolstoy wants to, which moral lessons he wants to give us. Okay, so let's read the story and accordingly I'll start explaining. Once a certain king had an idea. If he always knew the right time to begin everything, if he knew who were the right people to listen to and who to avoid the most important thing to do, he will never fail in anything that he will undertake, and above all, if he always knew what was the most to undertake, since he was convinced that he was right in thinking this way, he had a proclamation made in his kingdom. He would give a great reward to anyone who will teach him what the right time was for every action, who the most necessary people were, and how he might know the most important thing to do. So once upon a time, a king thinks that there are three things which every person should know. If he knows those three things properly, then he can become very successful in his life. Okay, the king thinks that if he knows all these three things, he can rule the kingdom very well. Now, what were the three questions? The three questions were: what was the right time to start anything? Who were the right people whom he should listen to? Okay, whom you can counsel? Okay, and third question was which was the right action to be taken? Means what work one should take or carry on. Okay, so this if the king thought that if he could know the answer to this situation, he can rule the country very well, his nation, his kingdom very well. So what he does is that he makes a proclamation in his kingdom that anyone who tells him the right answers to these three questions will be given a good award. Okay, so many learned people came to the court, but they all gave different answers. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right time for every action, one must draw a calendar. One must draw a table of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. Others declared it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action, but that, not letting oneself be absorbed in idle pastimes, one should always attend to all that was going on. And then to do that was most essential. Yet others said it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, and the king should instead have a council of people, wise people, who would help him to fix the proper time for everything. So he proclaims in his kingdom that he needs an answer to this, and one who gives the right answers will be given a good reward for that. Okay, so many learned people came to his court to give the answers, but there were as many learned people were there, as many answers were there. There were different answers from different learned persons. Some learned for the first question, that which was the right time for every action. First question was, which is the right time for every action? Some learned people, they said that the right time was, if you want to know the right time, you should draw a table of days, months, and then accordingly you have to make a timetable and you have to follow it accordingly. That will be the right time. Others said that it was not possible to decide beforehand what was the right time, but one should not sit idle. What was going on around, you should always take part in it, and you should not waste his time sitting idly. Okay. Then whereas the others said that it was impossible for one man to decide what was the right time, so he should have a council of wise people who will then find the right time for him. For it is difficult for one man to find the right time. So the answers change. Then the answers for the second, equally varied were the answers for the second question. Some said the king most needed were his counselors. Others said it was the priests, others the doctors, while some said the warriors were the most necessary. To the second question again, there were different answers from different people. Some said a king should always have a wise people, means council of ministers, and he should listen to this council of ministers. They were the right people to be with. Some said they were the most important people. Some said it was the doctors who were most important. Some said it was the priests who were the most important people. Some said it was the warriors that were the most important. Well, the king was not satisfied with these answers. To the third question about what was the most important occupation, some replied that the most important thing in the world was science. Others said it was skill in warfare. Others said again that it was religious worship. The king was convinced by none of these answers and gave the reward to none. So for the third question, okay, now what was the most important occupation? Which work is the most important? Some said it was science. Some said it was working, the skill in warfare was most important. Some said it was religious worship which was more important. But the king was not convinced with these answers too. So he didn't give anyone any reward. So he decided instead to go to a hermit who was widely renowned for his wisdom. The hermit lived in a small hut in a forest which he never left. He spoke only to common folk. So the king put on simple clothes and, approaching the hermit's cell, dismounted his horse and left his bodyguard behind. So as he was not satisfied with any of the answers, the king now thought that now I'll go that he thought of visiting a hermit who was very well known for his wisdom. Hermit means a sage. Okay. And this hermit was staying in a small hut and he never used to come out. And he used to meet only simple common folk. He never used to go to meet any king. So what the king does is that he decides to go to meet the hermit, and since he doesn't meet the king, so he thought he wears simple clothes like a common folk and goes to meet him. As he comes nearer the hut, he gets down from his horse, asks his security guards to wait over there, and he walks down to the hermit's hut. When the king arrived, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king but went on digging. The hermit was frail and weak, and each time he struck the ground with a spade and turned over a little earth, he breathed heavily. The king went up to him and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? That is the first question. Who are the people I most need and whom should I therefore pay most attention? And the third question, and what affairs what efforts are the most important and need my first attention. Okay, so the king reaches the hermit's hut. When he reaches the hermit's hut, what he sees is that the hermit is digging the land in front of his hut, and he's really getting physically tired because he's a weak, frail, thin, thin person, and so while digging, he is really getting tired. The king approaches him and says that I have come to visit you to get answers to my three questions. First question is that how can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Second question is whom should I listen to? Okay, so that I can pay attention to these people more. And what was the right occupation to do? Okay, so these are the three questions, and I want the answers to it. The hermit listened to the king but said nothing. He just spat on his hand and resumed digging. The king watched in silence for a while. Then, feeling sorry for the hermit, he said, You are tired, let me take the spade and work a while for you. The hermit silently handed over the spade and sat down on the ground. When he had dug two beds, the king stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit again gave no answer, but rose, stretched out his hand for the spade, and said, Now rest a while and let me work a bit. But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. Okay. The king asked the hermit all the three questions, but the hermit listens to the questions but doesn't give any answer. He keeps on digging continuously, and the king is watching him and digging the ground. After a while, the king sees that the poor fellow, the poor hermit, is weak and frail, so is getting tired a lot by the physical stress, physical exercise what has been going on. So he says to the hermit, Please, you are tired, please give the spade to me and I'll do the work for you. The hermit silently gives the spade and goes and sits on the ground. And the king starts digging. He digs somewhere around two beds, and again he asks the three questions to him. So I want the answer to this. Will you please answer? But again, now the hermit doesn't say. Only he stretches his hand and says, "Please give me that spade. Now you are tired. You sit for a while, and I'll continue." But the king doesn't give him, and he continues digging. 1 hour passed and another. The sun began to sink behind the trees, and the king at last stuck the spade into the ground and said, I came to you, wise one, for an answer to my questions. You can give me none, please say so, and I will go home. Here comes someone running, said the hermit. Let us see who it is. Okay. So the king is continuing digging, and this continues for around more than 2 hours. It's going on, and slowly the sun sets, and it's dark. So the sun is about to set now. It's set in fact. Okay, and the king gets tired, so he keeps the spade and tells the hermit that, see, I had come to meet you, wise man, because I wanted the answer to these three questions. But if you are not knowing answers to those three questions, tell me so that you are not knowing, so that I'll go back to my home. At that time, the hermit said, wait. I'm hearing some voice, I'm hearing that someone is coming running towards us. Let us see who it is. Okay, I'm getting a noise that someone is running. The king turned around and saw a bearded man come running out of the forest. The man held his hands pressed against his stomach, and blood was flowing from under them. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell on the ground, moaning feebly. The king and the hermit unfastened the man's clothing. There was a large wound in his stomach. The king washed it as well as he could and bandaged it with his handkerchief and the towel the hermit had. But the blood would not stop flowing, and the king again and again removed the bandage soaked with warm blood and washed and rebandaged the wound. When at last the blood stopped flowing, the man revived and asked for something to drink. The king brought some fresh water and gave it to him. So, The hermit says, wait, someone, let us see, someone is coming running, let us see who it is. And what they see is that a bearded man is coming out of the forest and running towards their hut. As he approaches near, what they see is that he is, what is he doing? The man is he's holding his both hands near his stomach, and beneath from his hands, from below his hands, is blood is coming out from his stomach. Okay. So by the time he reaches the king, he falls down because the blood is wounded. So he falls down and faints and falls down and is moaning very feebly. The king and the hermit, what they do, they remove his clothes, and what they see is that he is deeply wounded in the stomach. So immediately the king removes his handkerchief. The hermit gives him the towel, and they start bandaging the wound. But the flow of blood is so much that it gets totally wet. So again, but the blood doesn't stop flowing. So again, the king removes it, washes the towel, again puts a bandage, and so goes on until the wound stops. The flowing of blood from the wound stops. Okay. When at last the blood stopped, the man, he got into certain consciousness after the wound stopped, and he asked for something to drink. And the king goes and brings water, fresh water, and gives him to drink. By that time, the sun had completely set and it was dark. Okay, and it had become cool. So the king, with the hermit's help, carried the wounded man into the hut. The man lay there quietly with his eyes closed. By now, the king was so tired after his walk and the work he had done that he lay down himself and also fell asleep. When he awoke in the morning, it took him some time to remember where he was and who was the strange bearded man lying by his side and gazing intently at him. Forgive me, said the bearded man in a weak voice, when he saw the king was awake and was looking at him. I do not know you, and I have nothing to forgive you for, said the king. Okay, so by the time the sun sets, becomes dark and it becomes cool. So the king, along with the hermit's help, they carry the wounded man inside the hut of the hermit. The king today is very, very tired after walking and then again working in the field, digging the soil. So he is very tired. So immediately, he sleeps. Okay, immediately he closes his eyes and he goes to sleep. Okay. The next morning, when he awakes, he's a bit surprised because he doesn't remember where he is. So when he sees around, what he sees that the bearded man whom he had bandaged yesterday is intently means very eagerly looking at the king. And when he sees the king has opened his eyes and looking at him, the the bearded man says to the king, forgive me. The king is surprised. King says, I don't know you, and why you have to ask forgiveness from me? Because I don't know you and I haven't done anything for you should say forgive me. The bearded man says, you don't know me, but I know you. I am the enemy of yours who swore to revenge himself on you because you executed his brother and seized his property. I knew you had gone alone to see the hermit, and I resolved to kill you on your way back. But a day passed and you did not return. So I came out of my ambush to find you. Your bodyguards recognized me and wounded me. I escaped from them, but would have bled to death had you not dressed my wound. I wished to kill you, but you have saved my life. Now, if I live, and if you wish it, I will serve you all my life. Now, the bearded man says, see, you don't know, it says to the king, you don't know me, but I know you. I am your enemy because I had swore to take revenge of my brother's killing. You have executed my brother and you have seized his property. And I had thought to take revenge of that. And I knew that you are going to come alone to meet this hermit. So I had made a plan to kill you when you come back from the hermit's place on the way to the soldiers. So I had ambush means hiding place. So I was hiding in the bushes. I was hiding in the bushes in the forest, just waiting for you so that you will be returning all alone and I can kill you. But what happened was that you didn't, even after the sun set, you didn't, the sun was about to set, but you didn't turn up for a long time. So I thought of searching you where you are. But what happened was that to my ill luck, your soldiers saw me and what they did, they wounded me. They wanted to kill me, but I escaped from them and I came running towards the hut. And what you did when you saw me, you saw my wounds, you bandaged me and you have treated me and you have saved my life. I was your enemy, I had come to kill you, but you have, instead what you have done, instead you have saved me. So now, if I live, means this is a life, if I get this life, if I live and if you permit, I am going to spend all my life serving you. The king was very glad to have made peace with an enemy so easily and to have gained him for a friend. He not only forgave him, but said he would send his man and his own physician to attend to him. The king then took leave of him and went out of the hut to look for the hermit. Before going away, he wished once more to beg for an answer to the questions he had asked. The hermit was outside on his knees, sowing seeds in his beds that had been dug the day before. The king, when the bearded man said that he is ready to serve him because he has saved his life, the king was very glad. He was glad that why he was glad that he had made peace with his enemy. He had made peace with his enemy very easily, and now he is going to be his friend. Now he is going to serve him, means he is going to be his friend. So he said, I am not only forgiving you, but I will also send my physician to treat you. Okay? I send my man and physician to treat you. He then takes his leave and comes out of the hut to meet the hermit. And he thinks that before going, at least last time I'll ask the hermit the answers to the 3 questions. When he comes out, what he sees out of the hut, he sees that the hermit is outside on his knees, and what he is doing, he is sowing seeds. Where in the bed which we had prepared yesterday. Okay. The king approaches him, goes towards him and said, for the last time, I pray you to answer my question, wise man. The king says, I am now leaving. So, wise man, for the last time, I am asking for the answers to my 3 questions. The hermit says, you have already been answered. Still crouching on his thin legs and looking up at the king who stood before him. What do you mean? Asked the king. When the king says, will you please answer my 3 questions? The hermit says, you have already been answered. Means you have got the answers of all the 3 questions. He says, he is still bending, he is still sowing without standing. Okay, he is looking up at the king and saying that you have already been answered. Means you already got answers. He said, what do you mean? The king asked the hermit, what do you mean by that? The hermit says, do you not see? If you had not pitied my weakness yesterday and stayed to dig this bed for me, you would have gone back and been killed by that man. So the most important time was when you were digging the beds, and I was the most important man, and to do me good was your most important business. So he says, you have got the answers, you have been answered. See, He says, the king asks, what do you mean by that? And he says, see, I'll tell you. Yesterday, if you had not pitied my weakness, means if you had not felt sympathy towards me, that I was frail and could not, I was tired, you could see me that I was tired digging the ground. If you had not shown pity on me, and if you had not spent your time digging this ground, what would have happened? You would have gone back. And when you had gone back, what would have happened? This bearded man would have killed you. Okay, gone back and you have been killed by that man. So the most important time was when you were digging the beds. And I was the most important man, and to do me good was the most important business. So the hermit tells him that yesterday digging was the most important time, helping me, you were helping me, so I was the most important man. And since you were doing good for me, that was the most important thing to be done. Okay. Later on, afterwards, the most important time was when you were attending to that man. For if you had not bound his wounds, he would have died without having made peace with you. So he was the most important man, and what you did for him was your most important business. Later on, the hermit says, when the bearded man came and you were attending to the wounds he had succumbed to, that was the most important time. Because if you had not bandaged his wounds, what would have happened? He would have died, and if he would have died, he could have not been able to make peace with you. Okay, so he was the most important man, and that what you did for him, the wounding and all what he did for the bandaging of the wounds, that was the most important business. So wounding him at the bandaging him at the right time was the most important time. The man was the most important because he has made peace with you now, and the most important thing to do, most important occupation to do was bandaging that wounded man, because of that he is now alive. So remember then, there is only one time that is important, and that is now. Now, doing things now, right now, is the most important time. It is the most important time because it's the only time when we have power. The most necessary person is the one with whom you are. Okay? Who is the most important person? The person with whom you are. For you do not know whether you will ever have dealings with anyone else. So the most important person for you, for anyone, is the one with whom you are, because you don't know whether you will have any dealings with anyone else. Okay? So one who is with you is the most important person. So take care of him, look after him. And the most important thing is to do this person good, because for that purpose alone were you sent into this life. And the most important thing to do, most important occupation is to do good for the person you are with. Okay, doing good to the person you are with is the most important occupation, because that is the purpose for what God has sent you into this life. So, what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is the most important time is now, doing things now. Now, not procrastinating, I'll do it tomorrow. No, doing it now. That is the most important time. And who is the most important person? The person you are with. Okay, the person who is with you is the most important person, and doing good to that person is the most important occupation, because we don't know whether that person, someone else will be with us. Okay, so you can't say I am not going to do good with you and go and look for some other person. Okay, so it is doing things now, doing good to the person who are you with, and the person who is with you is the most important man. I hope you have understood the moral of this story. Okay, and with this we end this chapter. Thank you.